This is Mrs. Owen with Math Expressions, Unit 7, Lesson 6, talking about shapes and describing shapes, how many sides they have. In your students' math textbook, they will have a picture that has a bunch of various shapes that they can cut out and turn around, look at, looking for things that are squares. You can ask your child to describe, what do you see, what's different about different shapes in size, in the length of the different sides. So there's a few over here too, some circles, and then the actual page. But before we get to that, let me go over here. So here, of course, I have some different shapes that they will see today. The first one is a square, and we know it's a square because it has 4 equal sides. The sides are exactly the same, and they have what we call in first grade, they call them square corners. So this would be a good thing to grab a little piece of paper, an index card, and actually stick it into those corners so your child can see that the corners are at a 90-degree angle or a right angle. In first grade, they do like to stick with the term square corners, but you can also use the term, I definitely use it in class, right angles. Important thing to remember is sometimes students see squares that are turned a little bit over onto their side, and they want to give them a different name and call them a diamond. But this is still a square that I've just turned, which is why it's good to cut out those shapes and actually turn them around so your child can see that it's still the same shape. It's just turned at an angle. It still has 4 equal sides and it has square corners. A diamond would be a little bit more tall and squishy. I could actually make this into a diamond. Maybe I can. This one wants to stay that square shape, but I would have to actually squish it a little bit to make it into a diamond to make the sides look a little bit different. Over here we have a rectangle. Important things about rectangles is that the sides are not equal. They have 2 sides that are shorter and 2 sides that are longer, but there are still 4 square corners. And then triangles, of course, have 3 sides, and triangles can be a bunch of different shapes as well. They can be tall and skinny. They can be more kind of short and just kind of all the sides the same, or they can be a little bit short and squat. Over here, we have a shape that is not any of the names that we've talked about. No squares, no rectangles, because it doesn't have a closed sides on all the sides. So if they have open shapes, those are not considered shapes, and that's something that students will be looking for today. So their page for the day says which shapes are not rectangles or squares. So they're looking for the things that do not fall into the category of being a rectangle or a square. Remember, rectangles and squares have 4 sides and 4 square corners. For a rectangle, those sides do not have to be equal. For a square, they do. So this is a square. It has 4 equal sides, and if I had a little piece of paper, I could stick it in there and get my 4 square corners. This is also a square. Sometimes students want to cross that off and think it's a diamond, but remember, it's just a square that's been turned. If they're not sure, have them put that piece of paper in there. Diamonds would not have those square corners. They actually would be more narrow and skinny. So I'm not going to cross that off. It is a square. I am, though, going to cross off this shape because it's incomplete. It has that little missing piece up here at the top. I will not cross this off because that is a rectangle, but I will cross this shape off over here with 6 sides, that hexagon. Here we have a nice rectangle, so I'm not going to cross that off. And then over here, a triangle, I am crossing that off, but I'm going to leave this rectangle down here. It's, again, just turned on its side, which is why it's good to cut those shapes out and manipulate it. Here your child is just drawing 2 shapes. I encourage you to have them try to use a ruler or just fold a paper in half and use it kind of as something they can use to be straight so that they can make sure their shape is nice and straight. So here they need to draw a shape that has 4 sides and 4 square corners. They can either draw a square or a rectangle. But number 3 says it has to have 4 sides the same length and 4 square corners. That can only be an actual square. Just have them do the best they can to try to make the shape as neat as possible. For the next page, they're doing something similar. Here now, though, they are sorting these shapes into groups. So they're actually going to try to draw these shapes the best that they can into the sections over here. So all the squares are going to go down here. So I can see this red square. It'll go down this way. This yellow square will go down over here. And then rectangles that are not squares, so all the rectangles are going to go here. 2 rectangles, a yellow one and kind of this teal one.